Regular meeting of the Common Council, City of Oneonta, July 19th, 2022 is called to order, and I think clerk will call roll.
Mayor Bennett?
Here.
Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Councilmember Hughes?
Here.
Councilmember Brisker?
Here.
Councilmember Carson? Here. Councilmember Carson?
Here.
Councilmember Harrington? Councilmember Falco? Yeah. Councilmember Raptor? Here.
Donna, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, the star of the show is not here, but he's well represented. And I'm going to sneak around because I suspect that there may be a photo at the end of this. This is our first, my term, Spirit of Oneonta Award. And we're honoring Mike Gilbert, who is Wise Guys and taken care of right now at dinner time. Wise Guys, but he's well represented here. His wife Cheryl, and so Cheryl and the rest of my friends and supporters, let me read this Spirit of Oneonta Award proclamation. Whereas Mike Gilbert has enhanced the Oneonta dining experience as proprietor of Fat Mike's Dirty Dogs, head chef at the Autumn Cafe, and since 2017 as co-owner of Wise Guys and Sammy's. And whereas from its inception, Wise Guys has sought partnership and collaboration with neighboring and like-minded businesses for the benefit of many in our community, including the Oneonta Middle School, which through the combined efforts of Wise Guys, Dante's, and Sal's Classic, donated enough pizza to feed 375 students with a couple of slices of pizza. Whereas Mike Gilbert's vision of the good Wise Guys can do in our community has manifested itself in the collection of food and clothing and school supplies for those in need, and in its support of Pride Month and the month-long percentage of sales donation to the Otsego Pride Alliance, not to mention its creation of the LGBTQ burger. And whereas Mike and his wife Cheryl support and employ the disenfranchised and those in recovery, and have fostered a sense of family and belonging among their staff, and within an extended Wise Guys nation of similarly committed neighbors. And whereas Mike Gilbert exemplifies can-do spirit and an aspirational and achievable model of civic engagement, and with wife Cheryl and the staff of Wise Guys adds significantly to Oneonta's quality of life. Now, therefore, I, Mark Drake, Mayor of the City of Oneonta, on behalf of its grateful citizens, do hereby proclaim and recognize Mike Gilbert as recipient of this, our first Spirit of Oneonta Award. In witness thereof, I've hereto set my hand in close seal of the City of Oneonta to be affixed the 19th day of July 22. So, Cheryl, if you'd come up. And if you give Mike our thanks,
Of course.
our love, we appreciate him, we appreciate you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And that said, we'll move on to petitioners and public hearings. Do we have any petitioners in the audience? And We do not. And there are no public hearings. Oh, do we? Did we have a petitioner in the audience? Yes. Could you let me know, and the council know who you are?
Patrick Porter from 20 Garden, please. I'm having to work. Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask you from the Sanborn County, what is the status for to bring 1,000 new residents with new jobs into Omaha?
That's it. I appreciate that question. Actually, it's something that I addressed in the most recent edition of Tuesdays, I guess it was, of last week's Daily Star. I'll certainly send you that editorial, but in short, I can say that we have a marketing strategy. We make some determinations of what our best movements forward should be. We're in process. It's going to be a period of time before we start to see, the realization of that goal. But it is absolutely my expectation that we will achieve that goal, because in fact we need to. We need to achieve that goal. We need those 1,000 people in here. I was talking to somebody a little bit earlier today about the fact that we don't have that next generation here for so many agencies and institutions to be able to hand off in essentially succession planning. So as much as anything else, for the quality of our life, it's important that we do. There are many other reasons as well, but I will send you a copy of those 600 words that I put together for the Daily Star that specifically address that issue. If that would work for you. Will that work?
I'm going to send you his editorial from the Daily Star.
Very good. Well, I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. Any other petitioners here among the audience? No. All right. In that case, we'll move on to our boards and commission reports. We'll start with the Board of Public Service, which we moved because we don't have Scott here. Emily, did you have?
I wasn't.
Then we'll move on to the Environmental Board report. Councilmember Davies.
Well, I too wasn't present in the meeting, but I did listen to the YouTube requests as I could hear the meeting. Meeting was primarily, there was a petitioner, because it was Dave Hutchinson, former Environmental Board member, who wanted to have an extensive conversation with the Environmental Board about trees in terms of maintaining kind of the trees that have been put in the last couple of years, watering, new plantings, strategies for going about doing some new plantings, and that seemed to be the gist of the conversation. They were a little light on membership that particular day, so most of the conversation was dominated by discussion of trees.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? All right. Then moving on to our Public Arts Commission, Councilmember Party.
Yeah, I was there. We met July 13th. Great meeting. The chair was not in attendance, so one of the commissioners ran the meeting. We had a petitioner, again in quotes because it was Emily Falco, our 8th council member.
But I was, if I may, I was also there with our roots manager, Vicki Bodine, who's been we've been trying to have some vision for something coming up, but I'll let you know.
That was next, and Vicki. So they wanted to talk about some alley, I wrote down alley beautification, which I feel like is an oversimplification. But basically, the alley specifically that runs behind Roots from the History Center to the old Brooksies building, they kind of wanted to collaborate with Public Arts Commission and sort of figure out next steps for making that a more attractive walkway with the inclusion of some public art. So that was discussed like pretty at length. We talked about specifically ways to achieve that with lighting and to address maybe some safety in the alleys back there. So I think the petitioners left with some good next steps. We talked about the survey for public art, which is, excuse me, up and posted on the internet. It's been shared by the city social pages. The responses are still pretty low. So there was discussion on some ways to bolster involvement in that. We discussed poet laureate. Commissioner Spitzoff is really taking the lead on that, so she created a planning sheet that has a timeline. They're talking about potentially installing the poet laureate next June, and then having their first public appearance maybe be like the 4th of July. Up next, they're going to begin to talk about the criteria and go over like what would be involved in the contract for poet laureate. The master plan is complete. There was a motion and a vote to approve that. The commission is unanimous. I believe that will be coming up in the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee at the upcoming meeting, which is just in a couple of days here. They discussed public safety building mural. There's been a suggestion by AJ Hamill to do a mural. He has a very specific vision. I've also discussed this a bit with Chief Knapp, so I think what we really nailed down was that we identified the public safety building as a location for public art. We'd like to speak with Chief Knapp about the intent for, any art that he'd like to suggest for the building, and then the commission will kind of take it from there and put out a call. Everyone's very excited about that as kind of an upcoming project. And then there was some discussion on the foothills. Commissioner Austin is taking the lead on that, and he has spoken to most of the members of the board of foothills, but not the board president, I guess, because they're out of town or something like that. So anyway, he's continuing to follow up on that, and most of the foothills is on board with having some wall art up there. So that's great. That's great news. So that's it.
Questions? Yeah. Two questions.
Sure.
The first one is the master plan. I know it's going to Quality of Life. And maybe this is a question for Greg. Greg, are we going to get a copy of that before Monday's meeting to peruse it, or is it going to be presented on Monday? How's it going to work?
We can send it out.
I think more time to be able to digest the whole.
Yeah, it's in 20 pages. I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
All right. My
Excellent.
second question is the survey for the public art.
Yes.
Where do you find that?
So that we sort of had that question as well. Most everybody on the board. So the City of Oneonta Dash a Government page on Facebook has shared it. So there's a post with a link. It's like a bit.ly, so I don't know the website, but that's the best place to find it is on the city's Facebook. And then I actually just shared it to my council page as well. But yeah, if anyone here could find that and share it and try to get it out, that would be great, because I think right now there are only like 20 careers obviously that would like to have so much more involvement than that. Yeah, so that would be really wonderful if everyone could share it with their audiences. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks.
To the link, it's not something that we can put on our city website.
It is.
Oh yeah, it is on. I'm sorry, it is on the public arts page of the city webpage. Yeah. Yep.
My question was with regards to the alleyways. Besides the financial commitment, is that going to move on to the Quality of Life Committee so that they can take a more in-depth? I think that's a great idea, looking at that alleyway and behind 189 Main to, I think Greg was mentioning some thoughts about that back alleyway also. So if we could start taking a more in-depth look at those two alleyways and make it inviting,
Yeah.
not only just with lights, but art, tables, chairs, benches, trees.
So it's kind of a complicated process because it involves, private ownership, and then trying to get the city to come in and maybe have some role in it. I'm actually meeting with our city attorney next week, if you want to go over to join that meeting, or I can just, keep you updated on it. As far as kind of like, what can we do, what easements are needed, and, where can funding come from, so it's a little complicated, but We'll figure it out. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll talk to you after. I don't want to waste anyone's time.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Okay, can we ask you to continue on with the report on the Parks and Rec?
My pleasure. Parks and Rec met yesterday, I don't think, but I will get them. Okay. We had several petitioners at the Parks meeting yesterday, or guests, I should say, as well. So, Ann and Frank DeSimone, who are the folks behind the Little Red Caboose Free Library in Appleboro Gardens, came and just gave like kind of an abridged summary of the history behind it and why they wanted to do it and how it's been going. It's really adorable if you guys haven't checked it out. It's really, really well done. It's well stocked. She said that the kids' books tend to be like taken and not necessarily replenished with other books. So if anybody's out there and they have some spare kids' books, I immediately was like, yes. But it's great and it's very adorable, and they are just really lauding that, because almost immediately after that happened, Rotary did a little free library project, which is just wonderful. And so they were saying, what a great, there's a good presence of them in our community. We also had Jackie Bedell and Gil Rogers from the Oneonta Daughters of the American Revolution. America 250 is a history project celebration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. They would like to gift in entirety, so zero cost to the city, a plaque recognizing American patriots who fought in the Revolutionary War, and paraphrasing, they sent us the text. So they came and did a little presentation on that. They had a whole proposal and everything. And the commission voted to support that project. And so they are sort of looking to next steps for that. We also had a petitioner who wanted to discuss the summer concert series and made some suggestions of ways to kind of just broaden the audience space and also potentially like drawing people from out of town. So those suggestions were noted. Then we went on to the Parks Administrator report. We discussed a variety of topics. Apparently when we had that 5-minute really strong storm, was that last week? The plexiglass that surrounds the Red Caboose sustained some damage. So yeah, they're apparently, and we're aware. There's, I think, been an estimate for a repair or replacement, but that was not available last night at the meeting, so that's probably upcoming. The fishing derby took place on the same day as Juneteenth. The coordinator of the fishing derby just wanted to say that they loved sharing the park with the Juneteenth events, and that everything was great. There's been a lot of positive feedback from the Millrace Trail, which has been paved and opened officially on the 4th of July. People are really excited about it. Oh, I should say, because we have motion number 5, I believe, on the agenda with regard to the Greenway and the Trestle Bridge. Is it number 5? Okay, excellent. Just that I had mentioned that had come through Finance Committee and had received this part of the Finance Committee, and everyone was just really excited about the possibility of that for the addition to the New Island Trail. So that received not official vote support, but of the Parks Commission. There was a dog park study that was done where a professor wanted to study the dog poop, basically. So the results of that have come back, and there are on average 2 left behind per week, I think was her finding. So nothing overly concerning. Honestly, the biggest environmental issue with the dog park is the plastic poop bags that are then going into the landfills. So we discussed biodegradable compostable bags as something that maybe in the future we could move toward, which would be great. There is someone who is going to remove water chestnuts from Hodges Pond because it's an invasive species. There will be no meeting in August. And then finally, and probably the most critical discussion that took place was with regard to the Wilbur Park survey. There's a tentative master plan that was provided by our city administrator and our director of public works. So we went over that. The commission made a decision on the kind of hotly contested basketball court situation. They would like to keep the basketball court where it is and out of lines. They think that that's in the best interest of the park. And then turn the other two tennis courts into pickleball courts eventually. So I can get into some more detail on that, but ultimately, it keeps all of our like team-oriented sports in one section of the park, and it allows us to save the funding that it would take to move that basketball court in order to invest in other amenities in the park. So. That being said, that was the only decision that was really made on the tentative master plan. There was some discussion on some of the other things that were suggested, but commissioners are going to take the month of August to go through the master plan and have some feedback for the September meeting, since there's no meeting in August. That's everything. Who's got questions?
All right, we'll start.
Yeah, I don't know if they got into specifics, but do you know, can you give us any more details about the memorial? Thank you. Going into, I think I might have missed the part, but from the Dark Waters American Revolution?
Yes, I can, and actually I think I have it here on paper, so I don't have to search my email, which would be excellent. It is here. And it says, this marker commemorates the men and women who achieved American independence. These patriots, believing in the noble cause of liberty, fought valiantly to found a new nation, 1775 to 1783.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mark, please.
Another question, just a statement. I'm disappointed that Parks and Rec did not take the residents of Green Street concern to mind that they were voting or discussing that basketball court. That's been an issue for a while, and it's just disappointing to hear that that's going in that direction and no solution could be found for that.
Yeah, I think if I could just expound on their thoughts a little bit. So they had, Parks Administrator Lansing had talked with Chief Witzenberg about noise complaints or any calls with regard to that space that had been called in, and I think he said that there have only been calls for that space 2 times in the past few months. There was the general feeling was that there was nothing was mentioned about like when students were here, and potentially there was maybe some more use at that time. But the general assumption was that he probably, if there had been like a lot of calls to that place at any time, he probably would have mentioned it in the course of the conversation. So I wouldn't say that the position of the Union Street residents was not considered. In fact, I think that they took a lot of time with both perspectives, and that's just ultimately where they ended up.
Well, like I said, it's disappointing. I use the measure of how many times folks call the police. You get a little tired of calling the police on every single time there.
Yeah.
So I put that out there. Also, the sign that was indicated what kind of usage should be in that particular area was removed. I haven't seen it within the last week. So again, it's another problem area, and it's just going to get worse. And so I'll also make sure that the residents of Union Street, rather than call me every time they're upset, make sure that they call the Parks and Rec as well as the police.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, in the absence of, data, really, right, which is what Colin creates. So I think it would be helpful.
There's 2 points to be able to consider. One is data, and the other is the perspectives of people that are being impacted.
Yeah.
So, again, it is what it is. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand, or that the commission understands that that will not be well received by those folks.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that I can understand that's your constituency. I think that ultimately everyone just sort of decided that they needed to make the best decision for the park, which was finding resources elsewhere. So, yeah.
That's what it is.
Sure, yeah.
Do we have any other questions? How are you, Scott?
Hey, nice to see you.
All right.
Sorry for my tardiness.
No, no, you're all right. Okay, very good. In that case, we'll move on to our report from the Finance and Human Resources Committee. Councilmember Carson.
We got July 11th, all committee members are present. First topic was over the Greenway Reserve funds to do the engineering report, which I believe was approximately $3,000 for the Trestle Bridge. We moved on to the airport field farm. The bid was rejected because it's more than double the amount of funds that are currently available through a grant process. We're taking other measures to move the project along, but we're still just taking a look at it. The engineering report for the Arlington structure RFP, there will be results on that. It's going to be a $2,400 city match on that one also. Along with the Housing Commission assessment RFP, talks about another $2,700 city match. Tonight before you is motion number 3, which this is a full-time bus driver. She's been with us for a while. In another position, moved over to full-time bus driver. If you guys remember, Greg has been asking for and others have been asking to hire full-time bus drivers. This employee had the qualifications and certifications and moved over, and it was about advancing 40 hours of vacation time. We moved on to a quarterly staffing update, which I'm not sure if the city administrator moved on or moved that document to the rest of the full council, but Greg, if you haven't, I would advise that you move that to full council. Which document? The staffing overview.
Should around with the agenda, which I believe goes to the whole council.
Did you guys say that?
For the finance.
I find it very helpful to have in that format. Thank you, Katie. After that, we moved on to the fire department. Chief Knapp did a presentation on the needs of the fire department, primarily in resource staffing. He explained to the finance committee that resources that used to be available through call and part-time is no longer there. That's approximately 20-25 personnel. And that the call volume has also changed. We used to be more involved with the college students and doing other community work. The community work we no longer do. That's approximately 250 calls a year that we're no longer doing for other communities. And then the interfacing with the students has also decreased. And Chief Knapp did a very in-depth presentation for us and showed us the need of increasing the staffing because the volume continually goes up. There's actually no plateau. It's just keep going up and up. And since I've retired in 2015, the number has gone up 400 calls a year more every year, year after year after year. So he showed us the need with the staffing is using their personal time, and addressing that is one of the motions tonight. Overtime. There's a couple parts to overtime. There's emergency work, and then there's accrued time. And so this is a motion before you that takes all of that into consideration to cover the staffing needs at the fire department. The mayor and I, we talked earlier today, and he's asked the city administrator if he had any other ideas other than what the chief had presented to the committee. And so we're giving, I believe it's 30 days to the city administrator to look at other options for staffing resources for the fire department. There was a lengthy discussion, but before you will see motions number 10 and 11. taking nothing away from Jonathan Jewett, I had not yet met the young man, but I welcome to the fire department. But here before you is motion number 11. Angela D. Dominicus will be the first female firefighter full-time in the history of the city of Winnetka Fire Department. And as you can see, Chief Abb and Chief Foster are here tonight, and I think that's setting a momentous occasion to recognize that Angela will be that first individual. I think I've hit on all of them. I'll try and answer anybody's questions.
Questions for them? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. First, we'll move on to the Community Wellness Committee report from Member Davies.
Committee Wellness met last night. We had a very simple agenda to focus on finalizing our planning for the Community Wellness Summit. We have a date, it's August 16th, 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and soon we'll have that at Morris campus. We talked about our kind of lesson plan, if you will, and trying to make sure we had a large group of folks who we'd be inviting to have that discussion. So certainly we'll send that invitation to other council members. You're free to join us August 16th.
Very good. Questions for Councilmember Davies on this? I'll just comment that the speed with which this committee has gotten to a place where they're engaging the community in its entirety around these issues has been very impressive to me. I'm looking forward to seeing the results. I'm looking forward to, in fact, being a participant in some fashion. So thank you very much, Mark, and Emily, the committee in general. Moving on now to our city administrator's report.
Our current employment opportunities include, we're still looking for a full-time MEO, motor equipment operator, or heavy equipment operator, depending on qualifications in DPW on the streets crew. A police officer exam will be held on September 17th, so if you're interested or know anyone who's interested, please spread the word. We have at least two vacancies to be filled following that exam. We're looking for a part-time civilian dispatcher in the police department. We also are approaching the school year, starting up again at the end of August. We're looking for at least 4 part-time bus drivers. We're also looking for a transit working supervisor in OPT in anticipation of a retirement for the end of the year. In case that's a little vague, what that duty entails is daily oversight of the dispatchers, managing the bus drivers' records, regulatory compliance, managing their drivers' schedules, also occasionally driving the bus. So this individual would be required to have a Class A CDL with a P endorsement to drive the bus. Jenny informed me yesterday that the S&P Global has assigned the city a AA- long-term rating for our bond rating, which Jenny will get into more details on at our finance meeting with our quarterly financial update. That's keeping consistent with where we've been in the past. It's a good thing. And I'll let Jenny get into more details at the finance meeting on that. And a water main break today on Cherry Street Hill was repaired by DPW. Hopefully we won't have for too long there. I promise it wasn't on purpose. We have fiber mat pavement maintenance scheduled this week on 8 streets, Carson Road, Clinton Street, Chestnut to West, College Park Drive, Ravine Park North, Ferone Drive, Morgan Ave, North Fifth Street, and Richmond Ave. That'll be tomorrow and possibly Thursday, depending on how long it takes. Tree planting, I want to thank Councilmember Davies in his other role, and also Chris Yapucci, John Williams, and their crews for organizing, and Fred Hackowitz, who are our city forester, organizing the tree planting by some student volunteers. I guess they planted 6 trees along the mill race in Ewald Park. A lot of the trees along that stretch now are ash trees. We know those are going to have to go away, given the yellow ash war. So we're kind of thinking proactively to plant some more trees there to protect the bank. We also have 20 American Liberty homes planted later this fall in various locations around the city. I think those are due to arrive in September. We had noted last time, I believe, the Wilbur Bay pool filter needed some repairs. That's been done, so that's open again. We're struggling a little bit getting chlorine deliveries to the pool due to some truck driver shortages that are affecting lots of things, but so far we've been able to hang on and keep the pool open. Hopefully that continues. We received our second ARPA disbursement today. That's when there's $715,000 that we anticipated from ARPA. I know there's more discussion to be had in the budget process on exactly how to spend that. We've talked about possibly spending that on infrastructure improvements, but I know the council has some other thoughts as well. Regarding our budget process, Jane, do we have a handout to? The last thing I'll mention while she's doing that is, Scott probably going to mention too, but tomorrow night at the Sixth Ward Athletic Club, we're going to meet with Sixth Ward residents at 7 p.m. to discuss possibility of adding a bike lane on River Street. Anyone's interested from the Sixth Ward or elsewhere, feel free to show up. Okay, so it's that time of year, and we need to initiate our 2023 budget discussions. For the charter, at this meeting, second meeting in July, is when we're supposed to start those discussions, and what I'm doing tonight, I'm just passing out, what we're going to discuss in more detail at the next meeting. Our overall budget process this year, I think, given some feedback from council members and the mayor on previous year's process, we're going to change it slightly. I'd like to talk with department heads about this. We've been talking about defining the services we provide. Brian kind of kicked this off at the finance meeting last time, and we'll talk more about the fire department and other departments, but with just really getting into some depth as to the services we provide, the challenges that are involved, and starting to define the levels of service we're providing in some fashion. And are we meeting our own expectations? Are there things that we'd like to do differently? Are there things we're providing that maybe aren't a top priority? And I want to start here, and as a council and department head staff together have these discussions in a series of special council meetings, not in the regular course of business, because I think it'll take a few hours, probably on a couple occasions, to really get through and spend some time interacting with department heads and hopefully coming to a shared understanding of what our priorities are across all the services we provide. Obviously, we know from last year's budget process and years before that, we always tend to go through these cycles where department heads put their requests in, they're more expensive than we can afford to pay for, and we have to make cuts, and there's always compromises made, there's always prioritization to be done. So I think starting with where are the services that we prioritize, and then also, like we always start the budget process talking about our anticipated revenues. Could be have that same conversation. What sort of tax increases the council willing to go up to the tax cap or somewhere in between? Water and sewer rates, those sorts of things. If we can set a general target for revenue, then we can ask department heads to present a budget that meets our collectively agreed upon priorities within the proposed budget. Obviously, there will be things that are outside of that, and we'll have those listed as well. And when we come to you with a draft budget in October, we'll be able to show you this is what we can afford based on what the initial feedback was, and here are the things that we're not quite meeting. And then maybe we'll be in a better position knowing our shared priorities, how to adjust things going forward from there. Does that sound make sense to everybody? And I know there was some feedback from last year's budget process. It wasn't maybe perfect, but we're open to feedback, and we're trying to make it a better process for everyone. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to email them or share them right now if you have. Going forward, next meeting, August 2nd, we'll get a little bit more in depth and then schedule some future meetings, specific dates at that time.
Any comments or questions for Greg? Yes, sir.
The large planter in front of Nina's, I'm sure you already know. Missing it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, do we have to order it? Okay. I know that when that was originally put up, we supposedly ordered extra O's because we thought the O's would be the ones that would be stolen, but Murphy's Law says, no, we're going to get in.
I had nothing to do with it.
Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, well, yes,
So, Greg, just if you could recap, so you're going to have another open meeting with department heads. And then, what time are you, what month are you thinking that you're going to move into the council and work out, have that interaction with the department heads?
In August.
No.
So August 2nd, our regular meeting, we'll have a little bit more in-depth discussion, and then at that time, we'll set some more dates in August for special meetings that will interact with department heads.
All right, no more questions or comments for Greg. I don't have any prepared remarks, but I just want to kind of double down on the budget process that we're moving forward and say how very supportive I am of the notion of breaking down silos anywhere you can. It's a good thing. Having all the departments in a room, department heads in one room, and all the departments sharing an understanding of how each of them plays a role in the overall city governance is a very good thing and an informative thing. And providing the council with an overview, department by department, of exactly how these departments are functioning, how well they feel that they are functioning in certain areas versus other areas, so that the council can make a more informed decision of its prioritization into the budget conversation. So I'm very supportive of this. I hope you guys will be as well. I feel like we are going to be a very good place as we move through the process in these several meetings that we'll be having throughout the month of August. So again, thank you, Greg, very much. And with that, I will move on then to our consent agenda. And we'll start with number one, motion that the common council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held July 5th, 2022. Motion number two, that the common council approves the warrant totaling $340,521.10, and that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. Motion number three, that the common council authorizes the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement with the CSEA Local 1000 ASME AFL-CIO City of Oneonta Unit 8101 to advance 40 hours of vacation time to employee Kathy Winans, effective July 20, 2022. Motion number four, that consistent with the recommendations from McFarland Johnson, the city's airport consultant firm, and the purchasing agent, the common council authorizes the city to reject the one submission received in response to the city's invitation for bid for the Albert S. Nader Regional Airport Fuel Farm Project. The bid is rejected due to the estimated costs versus funding sources for the project. McFarland Johnson recommends that the project be evaluated for alternative solutions. Motion number five, that the common council approves the purchasing agent's recommendation to award the request for proposal RFP for professional services for building analysis and planning for the City of Oneonta Armory Structure Report to the most qualified bidder, Johnson Schmidt Architect, Corning, New York, in the amount of $38,390. This will be funded by the Community Development Block Grant CDBG 847CP96-21, requiring a total match of $2,700 as approved by the Common Council on July 20, 2021. Motion number six, that the Common Council approves a $3,000 budget amendment to fund the New Island Trestle Bridge Assessment Project, increasing the Greenway appropriated fund balance and increasing the Greenway Professional Services Code CM 03.7180.463. And seven, motion that the Common Council concurs with the mayor's recommendations to appoint the following to city boards and or commissions. For the Housing Commission, Deborah Marcus, with an expiration date of July 6, 2023. Mike Wilkie, July 6, 2024, expiration date. Bob Brzezowski, July 6, 2023, expiration date. Hannah Baskin, expiration date of July 6, 2025. And Jared Shue, July 6, 2025, expiration date. And for our Community Police Board, George Wells, expiring January 1st, 2025 is his term, not George. Monica Grau, her term would expire January 1st, 2024. And with that, I'll ask, are there any items to be removed? Yes, Dave. 11. I'm sorry?
That's under discussion.
Oh, it is, I'm sorry. We're through 7 here. Yeah, sorry about that. Katie?
7, please.
7. Any others? Emily?
Number 3, please.
Number 3. Any others to be removed? Okay, in that event, I have motion to approve. Mark Davies, followed by Emily, and with that,
Councilmember Murphy?
aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritter?
Yes.
Councilmember LaFortune?
Aye.
Councilmember Clayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter?
Yes.
Councilmember Falcon?
Aye.
All right, so we'll take these in numerical order, and the first motion that was removed was motion number 3, and,
Wait,
Motion to approve.
oh, I'm sorry. All right, do we have a, sorry, I am so sorry, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Lynn, followed by Katie. We will eventually get there.
I know that you had brought this up in your overview, Len, so I apologize for pulling it, but I was just wondering if you could explain why we need to advance 40 hours of vacation to somebody. I'm just confused why this is on here.
So I could model it up. I see Katie, our personnel director, who explained it extremely well during the finance meeting.
Okay. Is it because she was kind of just hired and she wants to take a vacation and before it's accrued?
Yeah, I'm sure that Chair Carson would have done an admirable job. However, the very brief explanation is that this employee has been with the city in a part-time capacity for 20 years. She just moved to the full-time spot, and to allow her to have the time to take flexibility and just have some paid time off for appointments, that's the justification.
Okay.
So we need an MOA because it's negotiated with the CSEA collective bargaining agreement that employees are only advanced vacation time at the 6-month mark. She will only have been with the city for about 2 months.
I see. Okay, that's fine. Sorry to take up everyone's time. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on the topic? In that case, call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritter?
Yes.
Councilmember LaFortune?
Aye.
Councilmember Clayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter?
Yes.
Councilmember Falcon?
Aye.
All right, then we will look at motion number 7. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
From Katie and followed by Ruth. And Katie, you're the one that pulled this?
I did, yeah. I'm actually really excited about all of these nominees, appointees. But I just noticed that there were 5 of them, and it's a 7-member
Yes.
commission, so I hoped you would give us an update
Sure.
on the makeup.
Sure.
after this.
We've retained the chair.
Jen Armstrong.
Jen Armstrong,
Okay.
to start with. And I have not accepted the resignation of Audrey Daggins.
Okay, is that because it wasn't given, or?
Both, they all were given. In her particular case, as we have 7 individual work groups. Each of these work groups with a very specific task. One of those work groups is the affordable housing work group. The commissioners, in a new conceit of there being essentially a review panel, are expected to serve as liaisons to those individual work groups. And they will also would be working members of those work groups, while not chairs of those work groups. So because of her, and what we try to do with all 7 of these positions, is find very specific expertise and experience that could be brought to bear to move the conversations along in a positive way as liaisons to those work groups. Audrey and the affordable housing work group made so much sense. So we decided not to accept her resignation. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question, thank you.
Very good. Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, what you said is just kind of piqued my curiosity. I'm not familiar with all the names. You seem to know, obviously, who these folks are and the connection that they might have with particular work groups. I wonder if you could maybe kind of expand, give us your thinking about each of these individuals in terms of what you saw their role being, just to help us.
Absolutely, happily. I'll start with Deb Marcus. Deb Marcus is one of the initial organizers of the Refugee Resettlement Committee. And so that is the work group that she'll be liaison to, which made just a ton of sense. Mike Wilkie is the owner of Untitled Property Management, that's what it's called. And he's had the unique experience of having inherited the position through kind of a transition that YZ Student Rentals did through the pandemic to become sort of a different entity entirely. So he has the experience of having worked with students in student rental. He has the experience of having rented to folks in a more long-term sort of capacity, and dealt with the issues of the pandemic where he was, frankly, they wound up paying people $4,000 and $5,000 and $6,000 to please leave because people would not pay their rents and couldn't be evicted through the pandemic, and has now moved his 10 houses and 169, I think it is, Main Street, I believe that's right, which is the Oneonta Bagel Company building, to what amounts to workforce housing. So he has that, I think very useful connection to a transition, I think, that we all will presume with the enrollment cliff that the colleges are facing, that the housing market will migrate to. Bob Rosowski is asked to chair the senior housing aspect of the commission, working with that work group. Hannah Baskin is working with what amounts to the, I forget what we're calling it right now, but it's essentially neighborhood beautification. Her background, historic preservation and so forth, and her energy around that, and a general sense as a new homeowner who has transformed with her husband the house that they moved into, and has truly bought into the city of Oneonta. Jared Shue brings an awful lot to the table, and has the charge of being the person who is the liaison to a work group that's specifically looking at housing development, they'll be in sync with the Economic Development Committee, among others, how we can tailor what we offer to be more accommodating and more likely to ensure some level of success around the development of housing. And so those folks that I mentioned already are retention of Audrey Beckenstein, and our chair will be, and she works with us, Eco 2000, has a tremendous amount of background in real estate and more, is looking at our infrastructure usage, the notion of our second and third floors going to a more appropriate use for housing, and some of the other potential that we have in terms of developable properties that might then be, before we started that process, but listed out, and a mechanism determined for them to be able to be taken to market. So it's a good group. I'm very pleased with it. I'm very, very pleased to say that we have had, at this point, over 50 people self-identify as wanting to be among those various work groups, with more to come. Yes?
Thank you. I think this is just a quick question. Would you mind reminding me what focus group Audrey Beckenstein is?
Yes, affordable housing.
Thank you very much. Okay. Perfect.
And of course, Audrey Beckenstein, through her work with OFO,
Yes.
That's been her charge.
Yes, yeah, good, excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions on these or on the police board, as far as those two folks, George Wells? Yes, go ahead.
I would just, if you don't mind telling us about the two individuals. I'm not familiar. I think George Wells, this is the first time I've seen the name since.
Yeah, I was very pleased to know that as I reached out to George, he said, because you're the one that reached out to me, so that makes me feel pretty good. This is the first time he's been involved in city government. George, I think, is well known to many people, and has, I think, some pretty well-established bona fides around his his conservative principles, but his commitment to Oneonta more specifically. And as we are looking to make certain that we are presenting a very balanced five-member group to this community police board, having lost former Mayor Mueller and former Judge Lucy Bernier, as they both resigned. These are the two folks that are filling that position. The second person, as long as I've gone through it for years, Monica Grau, who has worked for too many, I can't tell you how many years at SUNY, working very connectively with the student population. And our student population is, depending on the what census numbers you're looking at, certainly a significant portion. It may be 40% or 50% of our constituency, so I think it's important that they are represented as well within the community police board. Have I answered everybody's questions? Any other questions, comments, or discussion on this? Glenn?
So back to the housing commission.
Yes.
I'm looking at Councilmember Davies, because he took the sweat, blood, and tears to really put that mission statement together. These individuals that you are asking to volunteer their time and then oversee the 7 logistical committees, each one of them are going to oversee another committee.
They would oversee those committees. They would be liaisons to those committees.
Okay.
Except Bob Brzezowski, right?
Bob is also a liaison. There's no, there's a confusion on there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you said he was going to chair.
No, that's just confusion on this.
So they're going to be the liaisons to 7 more committees. So it's a lot of work on their part. I just want to make sure that they're going to follow, the original mission statement.
Yeah. I carry that with me. It's fairly dog-eared. I don't happen to have it in my possession right now, but it's fairly dog-eared. I reference it quite a bit, and I've spent some time with our city attorney making sure that everything that I proposed here, which is unique, it's outside the box, no doubt, that it jives with the work that was done and the verbiage that those 2 dog-eared pages represent. Yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, so just to clarify, I know the answer here, but these committees that you're forming are these kind of subgroups, they're ad hoc, we don't need to.
That's correct. Those are ad hoc, and that's the value of them. Honestly, we're able to pull people from outside of the city proper, although generally speaking, they are people, all those people are well informed and invested in the city.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion? Yes, Luke?
This is nothing personal, Mayor. I think I have to abstain from this motion. I recognize the name on here. I think I probably have a relationship with it, so I'm going to abstain. Okay, nothing personal. I just want to play safe.
No, not a problem. All right. Is there anyone else that has a question, comment, or item for discussion on this? No. All right, well, I appreciate that, and if the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Abstain.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaParisio?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Feldman?
Aye.
Wonderful. All right. That takes us then to discussion of motion number 8. The Common Council authorizes the following budget adjustment totaling $340,000 for fire personnel salary and fringe benefits for estimated overtime costs through September 2022. Increase account A.3410.12 overtime by $250,000. Increase account A.3410.13 part-time by $2,000. Increase account A.3410.8 retirement by $69,000. Increase account A.3410.81 FICA by $19,000. To be funded from decreased account A.3410.1 personal services, $100,000. Increase general fund appropriated fund balance, $240,000. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Followed by Len, and discussion. Do we have discussion? No. All right, then, just double check, and then,
I think I can wait till later motions, I think.
okay. Then if the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosevelt?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Rath?
Yes.
Councilmember Felton?
We move on to number 9 on the agenda, which is not a motion, but it's the July 2022 budget reconsiderations. And would you like to lead off?
Sure. I did send an email out to the council yesterday, just kind of overview of this, we can go through it. 2022 budget included what we're calling July budget reconsiderations. Obviously, as you know, there were several things that were removed from the budget due to our concern about using, excessive amounts of unrestricted general fund balance, mainly. We had several items included that were to be reconsidered at this time, and that's what we're doing. We had previously looked at the specific training budget requests, and now we provided the others. Do you want me to read through these? Or just, are there any specific questions? There's quite a few on here, and a lot of these are small dollar amounts, things such as personnel, legal services, police ammunition, police towing fees, various things like that for those that don't have it in front of them. There are some higher dollar items such as a field break for the parks crew, surveying equipment in the engineering department. And we went through, speaking with department heads, asked for feedback. Where do these fall in our priorities right now? Low or high? Low meaning it's still on the radar, but we don't need it right now. We don't necessarily need it this year. High meaning we really need to have this funded right now if at all possible. So the high priorities are what I've highlighted, and I've shared those amounts with you. Total amounts out of the general fund that we would like to fund out of contingency are $75,700, $1,200 out of the water fund, and $1,000 out of the sewer fund. I listed our budgeted contingencies and our current balances for those. The general fund, we budgeted $200,000. We have a balance of $187 change. Water fund, $110,000 was budgeted. We have $95,000 and change. And sewer fund, $228,000 with $221,000 remaining. So we have not spent a lot of our contingency thus far this year. This is as of mid-July, so more than halfway through the year. So speaking with Ginny, we're comfortable using our contingency or portions of it to cover these expenses at this time. That's the general overview of it, unless there are specific questions on the items listed.
Questions? Yes, Mark.
So I don't know, Greg, this should be for you or for Jenny, but this is kind of disadvantage not being finance administration, but just trying to understand how's our sales tax revenue over the past 6 months, where we at with that? We ahead of schedule or what we normally?
Well, we've got a little update on that. We're going to get more into detail at Finance Committee, but Jenny, if you wanted to share, an overview of that.
Well, currently, we just received our May sales tax, and it was under what we were expecting, and I'll go into more detail about it next week. It just has to do with how the state is allocating the sales tax between the counties in New York City. But currently, year-to-date, we're about $62,000 ahead from last year. And that is for 5 months' worth of sales tax collection, January through May.
And Jenny, what's your thinking for July through December?
With the letter that I've currently received, I am not sure, because I've got to do some more investigation on what the state is going to do as far as the redistributing of the sales tax between the counties in New York City. But if I look at, so what I did is I backed up to 2017 to see what our numbers were there. So I believe we're going to hit budget, which is $4.8 million. I do not know if we're going to exceed budget.
Thanks, Jenny.
Yes, Glenn.
So along Mark's question, Jenny, where are we in your expectation with the sales tax revenue? Are we in line with that, or are we under that budget? Of what you budgeted as of today for sales tax, are we under that or over that?
I believe we're going to hit the budget of the $4.8 million. If you had asked me last week, I would have said I think we were going to exceed it. But from the information I received today, I do not want to say that until I get a few more months. The letter that I received from the state basically said, I really won't know the full impact until October. So, but looking at what we've already received to date, we've received about a little over $2 million in sales tax for those 5-month period. If I go back to 2017 and take the last 7 months and add it, we will hit our budget. So, so I'm sorry I can't give you more detailed news, but I don't have the data in front of me.
But
So, Greg, I'll direct this question to you. Is there any way that the Parks Department could wait a little bit longer for that fill rate?
Well,
Or do you feel that that $20,000, given what Jenny and just said, won't come into play?
I'm glad you brought that one up, because I forgot to mention, that one's actually $25,000. We got an updated quote today. It's a little bit higher than our previous quote was. That's something, I think that was due for replacement in 2015 or 2016. According to its expected useful life, I worked through that, our list of vehicle replacements, so that's going to be older pieces of equipment as far as further beyond its useful life. From what I've heard from Chris in the Parks crew is it's really kind of a struggle. I don't know if Chris, you have any specifics to add there, but
What the Parks Supervisor told me is we are in dire need of a new one.
It was supposed to age out in 2015?
Yeah.
Okay.
other questions for Greg?
we'll be coming back with motions for the next week.
Very good. So again, if folks did not hear that, we'll be coming back with motions at the next meeting. All right, very good. And if that's the end of the discussion on that, let's move on to motion number 10, that the Common Council appoints Jonathan Jewett to the position of firefighter at a base annual salary of $39,009, IAFF Step 1 salary, Schedule D2, effective July 31, 2022, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. And do I have a motion to approve? Lynn, followed by Emily. Do I have discussion? There is. Okay. I saw your hands looking. Very good. All right, so if there's no discussion, then call the vote.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Carson? Aye. Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Bell?
Aye.
That takes us to motion number 11, that the Common Council appoints Angela Dedomenicus to the position of firefighter at a base annual salary of $39,009, IAFF Step 1 salary, Schedule D2, effective July 31st, 2022, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Do I have a motion to approve? Luke, followed by Mark Davies. Do we have discussion? Yes, Dave.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm planning on voting yes for this. My question, though, is since this is the first full-time female firefighter that we have, what facilities do we have in place, and what do we need to make sure is in place before she completes her training and comes to OEM?
So,
Sure.
please.
So I had a conversation with Chief Witzenberg today. They have a third floor changing room that they have space up there. It's a temporary solution, however, that's where she's gonna have to change and take showers and stuff like that. It's not ideal because she's gonna have to go through the police station, up through the court, through all these locked doors and get up there. However, that's the best that we have right now. As far as potential sleeping arrangements, we've started discussing some different options, but again, we don't have anything ideal. The public safety building, at least on the fire department side, was never really set up for male and female employees. One thing we do have is a potential upgrade to the fire department. I've researched and actually through Chris Iacobucci, there was a set of plans that were drawn up a long time ago. I was told recently that there's a possibility that for $10,000 or less, we can get an engineer's report on if the building could actually support a renovation, and each individual firefighter would have their own room, own shower, so it wouldn't be an issue. So I would certainly support that and look for grant-type money to update the public safety building.
So just so everybody here is clear, what do if we were building, or what do other communities do that are building a brand new fire station? How do they establish quarters for men and women? Because, I'm sure other municipalities have women that are firefighters.
Correct. Typically, everybody has their own room in a newer fire station. So we all share one. So, and we all share one bathroom. So that's the difficulty that we're going to run into.
Yeah, because I don't know how appropriate it's going to be to have everybody in the same bunk room. And I think we need to come up with a solution for that, like, right away. And I know we've talked a little bit about possibilities, or Tim and I talked about possibilities of moving things around, but I think that should be a high priority right now. I don't think putting barriers up are really going to be enough. I think we want to make sure she feels comfortable and safe. And
as do we.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I know that the way the area is set up right now, it's like we could divide everybody up in the bunk room, but then that's also your training area too. So, but I think that that should be something that we prioritize and try to take care of right away.
Further discussion?
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaCarge Jr.? Aye. Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter?
Yes.
Councilmember Felton? Aye.
Terrific. And then that takes care of our motions. We have additional business or other items for council discussion?
Just wanted to do a shout out to One Round. It's the basketball tournament that's happening July 23rd, 24th, downtown Oneonta. I'm already getting some positive reach outs about it, inquiring it, so brain-farting the young man that came to that presentation can. But kudos to him for setting this all up.
Mark Davis.
Well, I want to pass back my thanks to Greg and Chris for their support of the program. I brought in this kind of crazy idea to try to get some young people that were on the campus of Superman involved in planting trees. It was actually kind of themed as part of the leadership group. And Chris and Greg were just, real accommodating and made it happen. I thought it was a perfect place in terms of right along the mill race. I should also thank Fred Hathaway too, who donated a lot of time. So sincerely, thank you, gentlemen, for helping to support that. The students had a great time, and I heard them even talk about wanting to come back in 20 years to see the trees they planted. So it was a nice kind of metaphor to the entire leadership process, and it was only made possible by the support of you guys. So thanks very much.
Anything else for council discussion? All right. Do we have any correspondence?
Prior to the meeting, you all received an email from Mike Forster Rothbard. Contains information not only about the Greenway Motion number 5 that you already discussed, but the Oneonta Dam and Railroad Trail. So just draw your attention that that's in your email.
And then the question is, executive session. Have we a reason to move to executive session? Anyone? No? Good. In that event,